All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Life and Breath Foundation speaker series. We're excited to join you this evening to be able to continue in sharing, we hope, information that will help you in your travels with sarcoidosis. My name is Sean Hull. I am the president and founder of the Life and Breath Foundation. The foundation was established in memory of my mother, Ida E. Hull, who passed away in 1996 with pulmonary sarcoidosis, not knowing anything in terms of what she went through. The family didn't know that she had it. I did some research after her passing and created the foundation in 1998. The primary goals of the foundation are to offer the sarcoidosis community effective tools to track their journey, decipher medical issues, and maximize their quality of life. We also were interested in providing a nurture environment for those affected by sarcoidosis to be able to share their experiences. We didn't want anybody to think that they were by themselves. Sarcoidosis often is a misdiagnosed disease, and sometimes you think you're by yourself. And we just wanted to make sure that we would be able to build a community that people can exchange experiences, get to know each other, and to understand that they're not by themselves. Also, in doing that, we wanted to build an awareness within the medical community also to help combat this chronic disease, because there's some educational opportunities also within the medical community just to make this disease more prevalent. It's a misdiagnosed disease, and so being able to have that in the forefront was a primary goal of ours in terms of our mission. In terms of what we do, we're a volunteer-led organization, 100%. We have no employees. Any money we receive through donations or sponsorships go directly to supporting patients and who suffer with sarcoidosis. Some of the services that we deliver include this monthly speaker series, which we've been doing for a little bit over 3 years. The Life and Breath Scholar Program, which represents our interest in helping the medical community, especially physicians, learn a little bit more about sarcoidosis, help us understand how we can position better exchange between physicians and patients to be able to understand and allow the journey to be a little bit better for them. Also creating patient support and bringing in sarcoidosis experts to be able to get the answers to many patients' questions, and making sure that the individuals that are answering those questions are highly credentialed, experienced professionals, not necessarily WebMD or Google or any of those different things that people would go to. And then also, patient support through sponsorship and education. The one thing that we're really excited about more recently, and that's just this year, 2023, is the My Life and Breath Planner. It allows a patient to track their journey in many different areas, whether it's doctor's visits, a calendar, appointments, medications, mood swings. It allows you to kind of put everything in one spot. It allows you to organize yourselves. And then also, more importantly, we think it's going to give you a better opportunity as you go and meet with your medical professional to allow that exchange, that visit, to be a little bit more targeted, organized, and then you being prepared will allow hopefully a successful outcome, and then also the ability to track that. So more information can be found on our website, www.lifeandbreath.org, for you to be able to take a look. We offer it in a digital form and a paper form also, just depending on how you would like to look at it. But please take a look, let us know what you think. But at this time, I'd like to welcome in our speaker series professional that's going to be joining us this evening. Dr. Megan is a third-generation pharmacist who experienced a mysterious rash and nearly bled to death, starting a roller coaster medical journey. One day she was normal, healthy mother of 4, and the next she was forced to take prednisone to save her life. This inspired her to become a prednisone pharmacist to overcome the side effects and invent Nutranize. I'm going to have to get with her on that one. Which is the first supplement for people that have sarcoidosis. She earned her doctorate of pharmacy degree at the University of Utah and is a board certified ambulatory care pharmacist. Megan was given the Innovative Pharmacist of the Year award for her efforts launching a special program at a Fortune 200 healthcare company. She enjoys speaking professionally and has been invited to speak across the country throughout her career. Megan has the heart of a teacher, having been offered faculty teaching positions at both medical schools and a pharmacy school. Her mission is to help people on prednisone not just survive the side effects, but to thrive while on prednisone. Now, very important disclaimer here before Dr. Megan comes in is this webinar is not meant to offer medical advice. There's no doctor-patient relationship that is being established while you're visiting in this meeting. She doesn't know your medical background, therefore she can't give you specific advice. She wouldn't want to do that. That's reserved for your individual physician. So speak to your doctor before acting on any of the information that you hear tonight. It is our objective to make sure the health professionals talk. We supply the information to your doctor, and then you have that interchange with your doctor. So without further ado, Dr. Megan, welcome to the Life and Breath Foundation Speaker Series for 2023.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. What a great organization you've created. So without further ado, go ahead.
We're just happy to have you here. We know you're busy, and just your ability to want to share and to help these patients out is something that we really, really appreciate. And so we're so excited to have you, and we're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much. This is my favorite topic of all. It's something that I wish I'd heard about. And so what I'm sharing today is what I wish I'd known about preventing prednisone adverse effects, which is kind of hard to believe since I went to school before I was prescribed prednisone. So on that note, let's find out what I wish I had really known and what now you'll know about prednisone. So it seems crazy that you can prevent adverse effects because it seems like all we're told is either you put up with all the nasty side effects or you stop taking prednisone, and that those are all the only options. But what I want to share today is that there's more to it than that. There's actually hope and help available. So like I said, I'm Dr. Megan, the Prednisone Pharmacist, and he mentioned all of these fun things about me, that they offered me all these jobs. This was actually the day, this picture, that I did my medical school teaching position interview. And the most important thing I want to share is that I have a moon face in that picture. I was taking high dose prednisone and I still went through the interview and I still got the job. And so I can totally relate. I've had the chipmunk cheeks, the like undefined chin. I have been there, and I think that's the most important qualification I actually have. And so I know how it feels to be on prednisone. It is miserable. And for me, it was completely life-changing. So when I had to take the prednisone, I was taking it for an autoimmune condition. Have anybody heard of that? And mine was, I was possibly bleeding to death. And so they would raise my dose like the roller coaster going way up high. And then my platelets, which is when my problem was, would start climbing, and then they would start lowering my dose of prednisone, and then my platelets would crash. So they'd have to go back up, and my dose kept going up and down and up and down. They'd try to get my autoimmune condition to cooperate, and it just wouldn't. And eventually they had to put me on chemotherapy to get into remission for my condition. So this was me, miserable on prednisone, but still, going for it. And then I had this epiphany that I needed to help people on prednisone. And so I became the Prednisone Pharmacist. And it's led me to help tens of thousands of people who take prednisone, which I call prednisone warriors, to not just survive prednisone side effects, but instead thrive while on prednisone. Because I believe that you don't have to just survive. Like, you have it in you to be able to thrive while taking prednisone. And prednisone is this miracle medication. It truly is. Like, it saved my life. I probably wouldn't be here without prednisone. I probably would have bled to death. If modern medicine didn't exist, I would probably be dead. And so I'm so grateful for that miracle, but it also made me completely miserable. And so I want to help navigate that distance between the miracle and the miserable parts of prednisone. So that's called the risk-benefit balance. So if there's a scale that you're looking at, and on one side you have the risks, which are the side effects, and the other side you have the benefits, which are your disease getting under control. In my case, that was not bleeding to death. In your case, if you have pulmonary sarcoidosis, it's breathing, right? That's kind of important. Does the balance weigh properly? And for people, if they're having way more side effects than it's helping, like for example, if they take prednisone for poison ivy, that balance is tilting not in favor of taking the drug. And so they shouldn't take it for something like poison ivy if it's just a mild rash. Whereas if it's something like my situation, or probably a lot of yours, breathing and not dying is kind of important. And so the benefits usually outweigh the risks in that situation. But the risks are still awful, right? The side effects are still completely miserable. And so my goal is to share 3 secrets about how to bring this into a better balance for you. So what we see is that I've been there having this scary diagnosis that's like, what does that word even mean? That's a really long medicalese word. To now I have to take prednisone. And this is what mine was. This is what it looked there like. So I've been there too. I know how awful it is to have to go through the whole healthcare system and just be miserable. So the first secret is that you can find out what your doctor doesn't even know about prednisone side effects. That's the first thing we're going to talk about today. So does anybody feel like your doctor didn't warn you enough about the side effects of prednisone? If yes, type yes in the chat, because I mean, I'm a pharmacist. I don't warn myself enough about the side effects. So if you Google prednisone side effects, you'll see a fun little chart that looks like this. This is a screenshot straight off of a website that's on one of the top ranked for prednisone. And if you can understand what that says, then like you have a doctorate of a doctorate degree. Like most of that is incredibly high medicalese, and in this case doesn't even make any sense. Psychic disorders, like suddenly because you took prednisone, you can read people's minds. Like, that's just completely false. You don't suddenly gain magical abilities because you took prednisone. And so it's just not complete. It's not true what you find on there. When I took the prednisone, this is what happened to me. This is what it looked like, my life. I had red flushing cheeks. I get hot flashes in my early 30s. I had the big round moon face. I had these emotional roller coasters, happy, sad, furious, starving, like weight gain, osteoporosis, probably couldn't really tell yet, but like I know there was calcium being stolen, muscle loss, like tremoring hands, all of these weird things that are like, a lot of those don't show up on that list. And I was like, this doesn't match. Like these just aren't a fit. So then I dove deep and I contacted my friends at different hospitals and I said, hey, I want to know what your drug database says about prednisone, because each of these big words here, clinical pharmacology, lexicon, micromedics, and up to date, are drug reference databases that are at least a $500, if not $1,000 per year subscription fee. So there's no way I had access to all of them. So they all sent me these like giant PDFs of what prednisone side effects there are. And I was stunned that when I laid them all out, it didn't form a perfect circle. This is a Venn diagram. Like the overlap of what side effects showed up on each list was not perfect. It should look like this, like the realm of truth should be one great whole, correct? But in the case of prednisone side effects, the access your doctor has to finding side effect information about prednisone is different depending on what their hospital subscribes to. And so it's as if, like, just making an analogy here, that the clinical pharmacology database was some general Christian church's Bible. That each of these is a drug Bible, that the Unitarians made their own Bible called Up to Date. Micromedics is the Methodist little drug Bible, and the Lutherans created the Lexicomp Bible. And if you had opened each of these Bibles, you would generally assume each of them had Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and so on in the same order. And maybe a word or two here is different. Maybe this one's more modern. This one's more, Middle English, more closer. And in this case, when it came to prednisone, it was as if the Lutherans had just removed the entire book of Leviticus, that the Methodists didn't bother with, the book of Genesis, that they all just had whatever they wanted, just threw it in there, and they called it a Bible. And I was like, this is stunning. How can this possibly be happening? Like, how can I be looking at this? This can't be true. And then I went a little deeper and I found that when I compiled all of the side effects and the different ways they described it in the different Bibles, that there were 150 side effects possible from prednisone, and that those side effects make it so we have an increased risk of death of 2.83 times compared to people who don't take prednisone. So it's super risky to take prednisone, and your doctor thinks they know what they're telling you, and it's like, oh, that isn't a side effect, except now we know that's not true. So I compiled all those side effects, put them on my website in this searchable database. So you can just type right here, something, osteoporosis, bones, weight gain, whatever you want, into that little search box and find out, is it a side effect or not? And so my website is prednisonepharmacist.com. You can just go there and you'll find this handy dandy search function. So you can find out, is this an actual side effect or not? So that's a cool tool I created for you. And then the side effects on that list that I showed you made no sense. They didn't match with what I was going through. And so this is an actual list of what people go through in a short-term dose of prednisone. They're more likely to have moon face, insomnia, fluid retention, carbohydrate intolerance, osteoporosis, appetite stimulation, just being so hungry you could eat the leg off the table, right? Emotional lability, which means like that roller coaster of emotions, and weight gain because we're so hungry. So that's short-term. And then this is long-term: high blood pressure, eye issues like cataracts and glaucoma, muscle wasting, like shrinking of your muscles, like you don't have as much muscle mass as you used to, vertebral compression fractures. So that's when your osteoporosis gets so bad your spine compresses on itself, impaired wound healing, ulcers like holes in your gut, and if you're a child, that you may not grow as tall as you otherwise would have. So these are what you might actually experience when on prednisone. So why did the doctors think they know it? Because they don't know that they don't know. Does that make sense? Like, I thought I knew, and I couldn't know it all because it wasn't all there. So the truth here is that no one even knows all the side effects to prednisone. And the reason is because this is me, my dad, and my grandpa. The prednisone was grandfathered in. And the FDA, who approves drugs in the United States, just allowed prednisone to enter the market, to stay on the market, basically, without the testing that new drugs have to go through. And so doctors are just basing off their information they share you off of the poor information that was just available at the time the FDA just let it in. It didn't go through testing. So no one actually knows this. Like no one did the research. The drug company never had to do it. The drug is so old. It's just a lack of information. Garbage in equals garbage out. And therefore, if you don't even like, you can't prevent adverse effects if you don't know what they are. And so one of my goals as a prednisone pharmacist is just to make sure you know what to expect, because no one else is trying to do that. So now you're ready for secret number 2, which is the real reason why prednisone is causing these side effects and how this changes everything for prednisone warriors. So in my research of those side effects, I discovered that prednisone causes something called nutrient deficiency. I was really surprised because the only thing they taught me about in pharmacy school was calcium and vitamin D. And they said, you should tell your prednisone patients take calcium and vitamin D. Nobody mentioned any of the rest of this. This was all stuff I found in that deep research I had done. And not only is it stealing nutrients, it's stealing more than any other drug. It's kind of like how if you don't water a plant or don't give it the right soil, that it's going to wilt, go yellow, lose its vitality because it's missing that fertilizer, that nitrogen that it needs. That's how we kind of feel on prednisone. We're just this wilting, faded plant, just not 100% of what we normally feel like. And so that's what that's the general feel of what it is to be on prednisone. So I knew about calcium and vitamin D. I knew to tell my patients who I gave a prescription of prednisone to that you should take calcium and vitamin D because it can cause osteoporosis. But I had no idea about these others. And so now you know more than I did as a full-fledged pharmacist and more than probably 99% of pharmacists out there at this point too. So now you're ready for secret number 3, which is what you can do to control the prednisone side effects and feel like yourself again. So back to this nutrient deficiency chart. It shows at least 9 nutrients, if not more, are depleted. And when I compared it to the side effects, I was like, whoa, I see a link here. This is surprising. I was able to overlap those to show that the nutrient deficiency was causing the side effects. So the calcium and vitamin D was linked to the osteoporosis and the weight gain. The chromium was linked to the high blood sugar, which is linked to the diabetes and the weight gain and the hunger. And I could go on all day about the rest of them, but I just want to focus on those ones at the top. That the sodium, it actually goes high when you're on prednisone. And that's leading to high blood pressure. And so therefore, once you understand this small fact, it changes everything because you can change your life to deal with these realities of being on prednisone. The sodium, I'm going to focus on that really quick. If it's going artificially higher than it normally would have if you weren't on prednisone, and that's leading to the high blood pressure and heart disease, what should you eat? Low sodium foods. Like that's the simplest solution. Just avoid the standard American diet that's high in sodium, and it can help you in so many ways to avoid the bloating, the blood sugar, the heart complications, if you just made that one change. So back to the comparison of my side effects, the calcium, vitamin D, magnesium loss, those were related to the bone loss, that my body was getting rid of these vital nutrients. And where were they getting them from? My bones. Prednisone is an amazing medication because it mimics a natural hormone that our body produces called cortisol. And cortisol has kept our species alive through famine and war and other emergency situations by stealing from our reserves to keep us safe in times of threat. So we build up bone and muscle and fat deposits during the good times so that when there's a famine, our body can take little bits and keep us alive. That's why we're still here as a species. But when we take that prednisone, we're hijacking the dose, 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times higher than we naturally could have with our own bodies. And therefore, we're depleting those reserves way faster than Mother Nature intended it to happen. So when it comes to the magnesium, calcium, vitamin D, and the bone loss, what can we do about it? So in general, there's a lot of data showing that people on prednisone need calcium. This is scientific evidence. You can see all the links to the PubMed IDs to see, this is like the tip of the iceberg amount of information about why we need calcium while on prednisone. And so you could go on Amazon and you could buy this. This is the Amazon's Choice Best Value Buy. That's just one option. I'm not saying Nature Made is the best calcium. I'm just saying this is what you can do to help prevent the bone loss. And I knew all that in my head and I read it in the articles. But then when I looked back in time at my own personal blood test, like this is a screenshot of my blood tests while I was on prednisone. I was like stunned to see that my personal calcium levels tanked while on prednisone. That little spike in the middle, that was when I had to go on chemotherapy and it released extra calcium at the moment. But that cemented it for me that this isn't just something I can read in a textbook. I can actually see the physical evidence in my own blood. It just was completely stunning that this is real. This isn't just something I read. So I want personally to avoid osteoporosis, my spine compressing, and I want you to avoid that. So what can we possibly do? So the doctors who prescribe prednisone the most, you probably go to one of them, a rheumatologist, or you might go to a different doctor, pulmonologist, I don't know, but they prescribe prednisone more than any other doctor. So they created a guideline to help people to prevent the number one irreversible side effect of prednisone, and that's osteoporosis. And they said that adults who take prednisone at least 2.5 milligrams a day for at 3 or more months should optimize their calcium intake, and they should say they say to take this much. And they also say to optimize vitamin D intake of 600, 800 units per day. But I learned by watching Dr. Harris's webinar that he did on supplements through the Life and Breath Foundation. While with sarcoidosis, it's a little different because your vitamin D and calcium situation is a little different than the typical prednisone person. So it's a little more nuanced when it comes to you. And so you should definitely have a conversation with your doctor about this, because he has like a whole bunch of, Dr. Harris has a webinar about tests you can do. So I recommend watching those, understanding those so that you can understand the nuance of calcium and vitamin D with sarcoidosis. But in general, eating a balanced diet, maintaining weight in the recommended range, this is what they say people on prednisone should do. Quitting smoking, those are all super helpful for supporting strong bones. And then these are foods that are high in calcium and can support you in a very natural way. So you don't need to supplement as much with a capsule. You can do it with food. That's the really best way to get the nutrients you need. And then vitamin D, really the best way to get vitamin D is sunlight, but I know that's challenging for a lot of people with health conditions. So you can supplement, or these are some food sources. And then I compiled this little chart. You can screenshot it if you want, or you can download it off my website. It's called the 10 nutrients you need while on prednisone. And this shows the 10 nutrients that prednisone depletes in the first column. The second column is what your body does with this nutrient, how your body normally uses it. And then finally, in the last column, foods that you can eat that are high in this nutrient so that you can optimize your diet while on prednisone. What you're basically seeing here is simple whole foods that are the closest to nature as possible. So that was calcium and vitamin D. Now we're going to move on to chromium. This is one that people rarely know about, but is like my favorite. So chromium is a metal mineral that is normally in very, very tiny quantities in our bodies. And that's usually just fine. But when we're on prednisone, it's a problem because depleting just a little bit goes really fast. It suddenly is gone all the way. And why do we care? Because chromium has to do with blood sugar. your body can't use the sugar properly in the insulin, the whole insulin sugar dance that allows the sugar into your body doesn't work properly without chromium being in that matrix. So if you deplete the chromium, then you can get high blood sugar, insulin dysregulation, blood sugar dysregulation, diabetes, heart disease, weight gain, all of those downstream effects, all because of chromium depletion. So we don't want that. And they've actually done studies showing that if you take chromium, it can decrease your food cravings, help you lose weight, but not just any weight, because we don't want to lose the muscle weight, right? Because we just learned that muscles get lost. It helps you lose the fat weight, which happens on prednisone. And so chromium is a fantastic thing to replenish while you're on prednisone. Here's the studies that they've done, whole lot of them. And here's one option of where you can buy it on Amazon. And it's important for healthy lipid and glucose metabolism. And then yet again, I looked back at my own personal blood tests, and I have had several children, and I've chugged the sugar for each of the pregnancy tests. And I've done the glucose challenge, and I have taken a lot of sugar into my body and then taken the test. And you can see my body was perfectly fine through all those babies. And then suddenly I had this sugar spike, and that was prednisone. My body couldn't keep it in line. And I'm an otherwise healthy person. And I was technically, like, you could have diagnosed me with diabetes right then. And I was fine before that. And so chromium is vital while we're on prednisone. So you might be wondering, how many supplements would I have to take in order to replenish all the nutrients that prednisone steals? Because you need the calcium and the vitamin D and the magnesium and the zinc and potassium and folate and vitamin A and vitamin C. And it's like exhausting to think of all of the pills you'll have to take. Plus, it would cost like $200 to do that. So I created this prednisone checklist, and it has all of that. It has those things you can do, like the exercise, quit smoking, those things you can do on a daily basis, and all of those ingredients you need to include in your diet or in a supplement form. And I have it on this checklist, and it's got the top 15 concerns of people on prednisone and what you can actually do about it. It's got my top 25 tips. And so you can just, excuse me, download that.
I just think it's so interesting, the amount of information, and the checklist is key. Be able to keep close to you, to be able to take advantage of that and just really recognize the mistakes that are out there, the checklist that would help you navigate through that, and then to have the conversations. I tell you, it's really good. I really love this.
Thank you. It's been quite an experience learning all of these things. So I'm complete. I'm done with the presentation. You can just download this, but I heard there's lots of questions.
Well, one question that came up was, it asked a little bit more about the side effects of other drugs. And the example is methotrexate.
Yeah. So methotrexate is a drug they often prescribe either along with prednisone or to replace prednisone. And a lot of people are under the impression that since it's a chemotherapy agent, it's been used in the past for chemo, for like cancer, that it's more dangerous, has worse side effects, is somehow riskier than prednisone. And they've done studies showing that it is actually, in most respects, safer and more well tolerated than prednisone. And so if your doctor thinks that's a good option for you, then it's usually a great way to transition off of prednisone. And it either works or it doesn't work generally, but it takes like 3 to 6 months to find out. And so you kind of have to give it time. And then the side effects are often nausea, stomach upset, things like that. There are a few very rare and really quite terrible side effects with methotrexate, but they're very rare. And so for most people, it's a great option.
Gotcha. So we have one person asked, we were talking a little earlier about taking calcium or vitamin D, and this patient just shared that some patients are told not to take calcium or vitamin D. Where do you think that's coming from?
Yeah, so I love Dr. Harris's webinar about this. If you want to learn more, he knows more about it. I think that's specific in sarcoidosis situations that they would say that. And I'm trying to remember exactly how he explained it, but it has to do with the granulomas from the sarcoidosis use the vitamin D enzymes in a way. I can't really remember all the details, but basically your balance of vitamin D and calcium is a little different than a typical person, and they just don't want you throwing it out of whack. So he recommends, and I also recommend, that you get testing to find out your exact vitamin D status, because that changes your calcium status. And there was one more test called the PTH, or parathyroid hormone. And if you get those all, then you can more safely figure out the proper dose of calcium and vitamin D for you with your doctor.
Awesome. Do you have any secrets on tapering?
Oh, I sure do. I actually have a free taper chart on my website as well. And it has all the different ways of tapering. There's just follow your doctor and drop by this milligram every week. And they might drop by like 40, 30, 10, 20, 10. Each of those is a different dose every week. Some people, that's too fast. And so I have a whole bunch of those laid out on my website, prednisonepharmacist.com/how-to-taper prednisone. And you'll find the details there.
Awesome. Any advice to help with blood sugars while on prednisone?
Yes. Okay. So take chromium to start with. Eat a diet that's low in sugar, like in simple sugars, especially basically things that are the standard American diet, fast food, things that come in a box, things that come in a package. If they come just, in a produce bag, that's awesome. Eat that. Like fruit sugars are usually okay if you're actually eating the whole fruit. So avoiding the simple sugars, supplementing chromium, and then there are other ingredients you can supplement with as well. I highly recommend berberine and cassia bark.
Okay, awesome. Just mixing around here a little bit, trying to cover all bases. One of our patients is having issues with muscle atrophy after 1+ years on prednisone. Any thoughts or comments there?
Yeah, that happened to me. It was the weirdest thing. Like I looked like I had this big fat pregnant belly, and then my arms and legs were the skinniest I'd ever seen in my whole life. And it's like I told you, it's because your body's stealing from those deposits, like that bank account you have of good nutrients, and using it all up to get you through this hard time. And so you need to give it back. It's collagen that's built, like making a lot of the fibers in your muscle. It's eating a protein diet, depending on your kidney status. You really have to talk to your doctor about how much protein you can handle. It's giving back all of those nutrients that I mentioned that are depleted, because if they're not in the right ratio, your muscles can't build back up. And doing weight-bearing exercise. I didn't dive into that exactly on the osteoporosis, but both osteoporosis and muscle loss need you to be doing supportive exercises that can help you build it back up.
Awesome. Well, I have a special guest from Australia that would like to ask you a question. This patient is currently diagnosed with neurosarcoidosis. And the question is, are there side effects generally the same with prednisone, irrespective of the type of sarcoidosis, i.e. pulmonary? Would a standard men's multivitamin satisfy the nutrient deficiencies caused by prednisone?
Yeah. So different diagnoses having different side effects is possible, but back to the original problem here, nobody's done the studies of, does a person with lupus or a person with sarcoidosis or a person with rheumatoid arthritis really have different side effects? Nobody's really figured that out for sure. But it's also hard for a lot of us with these autoimmune conditions to be like, is this a side effect or is this another like manifestation of my disease, or is this another autoimmune condition I'm suffering? And so it's just a really tough situation. That's why I mentioned my little prednisone side effect search thing, so you can at least see, could this be a side effect of prednisone? And it's not a new thing that's going on. That's where I would start, rule that out, but I don't know for sure. Okay, that was the first part of the question. What was the second part of the question?
Second part had to do with the multivitamins to satisfy the nutrient deficiencies.
Yeah, so a men's multivitamin would get you most of the way, but not all the way. They don't usually have chromium either at all or in a high enough amount. So either you need to supplement that, or I'm going to bring this up because you asked. I invented a supplement that includes all of those things in the right amount that you need while on prednisone. And so it's got a morning bottle that has ingredients that help support your blood sugars, to support your healthy weight. And then this bedtime bottle, and it helps you sleep at night, have a good mood, and both of them support your bones. So it's designed exactly for a person who is taking prednisone and to help you recover.
So the all-important concern and question, how do you pronounce that supplement?
Yes, this is Nutranize.
Nutranize.
It's like nutrition and neutralize. So like we were normal before we took prednisone, then we went into the negative with our nutrition, and now we give it back. We're neutralizing that issue through nutrition. Nutranize.
See, if I knew that, I could understand it. I can remember that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to neutralize it, you know?
Exactly. Sometimes you got to neutralize it.
Just got to take care of it. I totally get it. I totally get it. All right. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to write that down just when I need it.
Never had anybody say that, but I love that. Sometimes you gotta neutralize it.
So how about any suggestions to prevent your stomach from being upset?
Yeah. So prednisone, the stomach issues are often a drug interaction, actually. So the stomach issues, it can be an ulcer, it can be acid reflux, it can be GERD, any of those types of things, maybe even nausea, but that's not as likely. It's because people are often taking prednisone along with something like ibuprofen, Motrin, naproxen, that type of drug, and they're working kind of fighting against the same pathway, and that can lead to issues in the gut lining. And so if you have to take, well, if possible, don't take them together. If you're taking prednisone, don't take ibuprofen or naproxen. If you have to take them, then you should take another drug on top of that that's now available over the counter called a PPI, like Protonix, which is pantoprazole, omeprazole, which is Prilosec, or lansoprazole. Any of those ones that end in prazole, they're what you need to counteract that. What's happening to your gut.
So we got a couple questions on the dosage level. Is there a certain kind of prednisone called methylprednisone?
Yeah, so methylprednisolone is a cousin to prednisone. It's just like, if this is prednisone, it's got another little thingy coming off of it. They're practically the same thing, and one is more potent than the other. They're, for all intents and purposes, the same drug, but technically they are different. And so the dose would be a little bit different because you'd need a little more prednisone than methylprednisolone.
So if we're talking about the cousin methylprednisone, is 4 milligrams safe for long-term use? Like, let's say, be taking it for 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty common. If you have a serious chronic condition, there are a lot of people who are doing that. There is no safe dose of prednisone or methylprednisolone. So I can't say it's safe. Like one dose isn't safe. Just taking one pill causes side effects. And so is it the most important, going back to the very beginning, that balance? Is the balance of risks and benefits in your favor? Probably, but the real question is, do you know enough about the benefits now that I've told you a lot about the risks? And if you're replenishing those nutrients, that'll help bring that balance back in your favor.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, good. I think we're getting through these pretty good. How are you doing?
Good.
Okay, so let me go to the next one. How do you live with sarcoidosis? Cope with how it affects and changes you, and maybe the other medications, such as Imuran.
Imuran?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So that is a hard thing. I definitely understand, having suffered the moon face and like the visual change of my body. And I kind of think back to that classic movie of Princess Bride, where you have Inigo Montoya and his sword fighting skills, and he has scars on both of his cheeks that came from the six-fingered man who had told his dad to make a sword for him and then refused to pay. And so he killed his dad. And then Inigo, little Inigo boy, he was like 6 or 7 or something, went and tried to defend his Spanish honor of his father. And the six-fingered man gave him these scars. And those scars motivated him for the rest of his life to go through the misery of training to be a master swordsman, of going through the loneliness of becoming a warrior. And taking a medication for a chronic disease is like that, because you have physical evidence with your moon face of going through that misery, and it's not fun, but you are becoming a warrior because of it. And so finding the best balance of risks and benefits, doing whatever you can to counteract the side effects, and then giving yourself grace, because you're fighting a battle and other people are seeing the scars of your battle.
Wow. Definitely scars, especially with prednisone, right? I totally get it. Okay. Next question. One of our guests was on steroids for 3 years now and is having all kinds of issues with back pain. They broke their shoulder, lost 5 teeth. Any suggestions for the back pain or being on steroids?
Yeah. So if you've gotten to the point where you're breaking bones and losing teeth, then the osteoporosis is pretty far along. And at this point, you really probably are under the care of a physician, and they're probably prescribing medication to stabilize your bone, to prevent further loss. And those medications do come with side effects, but when it's either your back crumbling in upon itself more and causing more pain, then the benefits definitely outweigh those risks. And so taking those medications, getting on the right ones, taking them appropriately. Most people take them wrong. And so find out exactly how you're supposed to be taking it and take it the correct way. And then the pain is really hard. There aren't a lot of great answers for back pain, but safe exercises, getting a strong core to help support your body, those are really important things to be doing.
So that's a great question. You know, if this, makes you put on weight and water and things of that nature, are there certain exercises? I mean, you mentioned certain things you can eat and pay attention to. Are there certain exercises? What are the other things that could help someone combat, the side effects of prednisone?
Yeah. So, I mean, most important thing is consistency. And when you're having a hard time breathing, you can't go run a marathon. So I'm not recommending that at all for anyone on prednisone ever, because that's way too much stress to be putting on your body when you're already giving it this extra stress of prednisone. So consistent, whatever you can that impacts your bone, walking. If you can move on to jogging, fine, dancing, whatever is causing gravity and your bone to have their moment of impact. That strengthens your bone, strengthens your muscles, weightlifting. Those are all really important.
Mhm. Are these some things, and I'm just trying to make a connection here. Are these some things that possibly a patient could use the life and breath tracker just to keep, um, because you talked about execution, you talked about being um, very deliberate about, the process in doing this, and then that could be the information they give back to their physician. But doing it over the course of time, being able to communicate, well, here's how I felt, or, here are the side effects that I felt that particular day, mood swings, here's what I ate, here's my sleeping patterns, all those wonderful things that the Life and Breath tracker helps you track. Could a lot of that help in your interaction with your physician, and then help maybe answer some of these questions or challenges that maybe the patient has?
Oh yeah, I think tracking it is so important. I mean, I have my taper chart. It's tracking your dose, tracking your symptoms, tracking how you feel when you eat this or how you feel when you exercise that way. Seeing how does this action make me feel later? I think that is so valuable because you only have this much time with your doctor, right? And if you can just be like, here's everything I know really fast, you can just glance at it. That is fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've really gotten to a lot of the questions that were sent in and a lot of the questions that were asked. Dr. Megan, maybe in closing, is there, in terms of a summary or best practices or something that our guests could do for the remainder of the year, pay attention to? Would you recommend anything specific?
Yeah. So I know that prednisone is miserable and that we can do something about it, that it seems like it's not our job, but actually, when it comes to prednisone, it's a lifestyle change that we need to make. And so doing whatever you can to bring that balance of benefits to risks in your favor is what you need to do, whether it's starting walking every day, or it's taking a supplement, or it's being careful what you're eating. You can do this one little tiny step at a time. And if you are overwhelmed with the amount of information, step one is just download my free prednisone checklist, because it summarizes all of that. It's got all of those things that I've mentioned.
So Dr. Megan, we'd like to stay connected with you. I was just thinking how we can keep this in front of our patients and everything. And if you could give your website, we'll make sure that we have information on our website to make sure that the connection remains and is consistent, especially as people continue to navigate through things and everything. And this, as you said, it's just got to be constant, consistent, and just continue to get the education, continue to ask questions, and then we can hopefully get to a point where we can kind of overcome some of this and battle the side effects that we have to go through.
Yep. So here it is, how to find me. There's my website, prednisonepharmacist.com, two of the hardest words in the English language to spell, and my YouTube channel and my email. You can get a hold of me there, and then download that checklist. It's free. No, just put in your email address so I can send it to you.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Megan, on behalf of the Life and Breath Foundation, the board of directors, all the patients, our special guests this evening that have joined us live and that will review this on our YouTube page, we greatly appreciate the information, the experience and direction that you've given us. It just allows us to understand a little bit more about what surrounds us and how we can combat this. but we appreciate your time and your efforts and expertise and what you try to do for those that have to take this disease and battle the side effects and everything. So just gracious enough. We appreciate you and thank you again.
You're so welcome. Thanks for letting me join you.
Okay, Sean Hall, founder of the Life and Breath Foundation. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.